Hello everybody and welcome to the Infernal Eclipse of Ragnarok hard mode progression guide. This video is a direct continuation of the pre-hard mode progression guide, so if you haven't watched this part, I highly recommend you to do so, as I'll be referring stuff from the first video all throughout this video. I also have an installation guide that I highly recommend you to check out, whether you plan on playing on single player or multiplayer. In today's video, we'll see how to progress from the beginning of hard mode to beating the mood load and everything in between in the Infernal Eclipse of Ragnarok mod pack. Let's get started. We ended off the last video after defeating the Wall of Flesh, which transformed our world into its Hardmode state. When entering Hardmode, a ton of things will change in your world, so let's explore a little bit and see what we can find. For new biomes, we have the Hollow and the Astral Infection, both with their respective underground layers. As you probably know, Calamity changes the early Hardmode progression, making you not have to break the evil altars to spawn the Hardmode ores. Instead, Cobalt and Palladium will appear right as you beat the Wall of Flesh, and the other ores will appear as you beat the mechanical bosses. Now let me explain why this tier is called pre-Polaris and not just pre-mechanicals. As I just said, this mod pack uses the improved early Hardmode progression from Calamity, but it also expands on it. In this tier of progression, you'll have to beat the 3 mechanical bosses as usual, but beating the 3 mechanical bosses will lead you to a 4th, final mechanical boss called Polaris, with the souls of Blight it drops being required to craft the items that will normally only require the 3 souls of the mechanical bosses. So now let's see how you can prepare for your upcoming battles. Go down to the caves and collect Cobalt and Palladium to make a new tier of pickaxe, and also collect souls of Light and Night from underground evil and hallowed enemies. There is also the souls of Spite from Thorium for underworld enemies, and a few other new souls that we will cover later. Souls of Light and Night are going to be used for a lot of different crafts, so make sure to collect a good amount of both. Next up, you'll have to collect some souls of Light from Wyverns in the sky to make your first pair of Hardmode wings. Having access to the Astral Infection gives you access to the Starblight suit material, which you can use with Fallen Stars and Meteorite Boss to make the Comet Shard, a new permanent mana upgrade. You'll also notice that enemies from certain biomes will drop new materials, like Essence of Eleum from ice enemies, Essence of Havoc from underworld enemies, and Essence of Sunlight from sky enemies, which will all be useful for crafts later on. Your first Hardmode boss is going to be Borean Strider, someone using a Strider Steer, crafted from a Force Core, Spider Fangs from Hardmode Spiders, Souls of Night, and Essence of Eleum. Also note that the boss can only be summoned using a Blizzard in the Ice biome. Next up is going to be the Pirate Invasion event that you can summon using a pirate map. While fighting the invasion, Flying Dutchman ships will appear, with its expert drop being the first infinite stationary flight mount you'll have. Another invasion event you can do at this point is the Frost Legion, summoned by using a snow globe and gives a couple of new weapons for certain classes. Your next boss is going to be the Fallen Beholder, summoned using a Void Lance made from glass and souls of Spite from underworld enemies. Defeating it will make one of 2 new ores appear in the world, either Lodestone chunks or Valladium chunks. You can craft them into ingots, then to weapons and armor. You can go check the underground jungle, as there will now be life fruits to increase your health. You'll need 25 of them, 20 to consume right away for an extra 100 HP, and 5 to make the blood orange later on. If a blood moon comes around, try to go fishing for a chance to make your next boss appear, Dread Nautilus. Remember that you can summon the blood moon manually using a bloody tear, and the boss can also be summoned using a red bait. There's not a ton of drops apart from the Sanguine Staff, which is a pretty powerful summoning weapon that could be useful to pick up even if you're not playing the summoner class, to at least fill your free summoning slot. The next boss is going to be Queen Slime, summoned using a gelatin crystal, which can either be found in the underground hollow or crafted with some alloyed materials. Then you'll have to fight Cryogen, summon using a Cryo Key crafted from Ice, Souls of Light and Night, Essence of Eleum and Strider Fangs from the Burian Strider boss we fought earlier. Killing Cryogen will unlock a few things in your world. First of all, Cryonic Ore will appear in the underground snow biome. It's not going to be accessible now, as you need to get a pickaxe from a tier 3 Hardmode ore, but keep this in mind for later. Killing Cryogen will also free the Archmage NPC. After talking to him, he'll give you a dormant key, which you can give to Solin for inspection. She'll tell you that the key opens the Permafrost Skip, a naturally generated structure in the underground ice biome. Solin will teleport to it, and you'll have to find her at the entrance of the structure. Here, you'll find the Frostblaze seedling, collect it and go plant it on some grass. Your next fight will be against the literal polar opposite to Cryogen, being Pyrogen, summoned using a Pyro Key crafted from Sand, Souls of Light and Night and Essence of Havoc. Now, you should be ready to fight your first mechanical boss. Make your choice between the Twins, the Destroyer, or Skeleton Prime. The recipe to make the summoning items is relatively similar to vanilla, except for needing a strange alien motherboard dropped from the star Scatter, so you may need to repeat this boss a few times to make the mechanical eye, worm, or skull. Beating your first mechanical boss will give you their respective soul, either Soul of Fright, Might or Sight, Strange Plating, and some life-powered energy cells. It will also make the tier 2 ores appear in your world, being Mithril and Orichalcum. Note that unlike in vanilla, the first 3 mechanical bosses you beat will not give you alloyed bars. Go mine a generous amount of both tier 2 ores and use them to craft either a Mithril or Orichalcum anvil, which will be used for Hardmode crafts. Unlocking tier 2 ores will also make the next component of the Codebreaker craftable, the long-range sensor array. The next encrypted schematic can be found in the underground jungle lab. Once you find it, bring it to the Codebreaker and decrypt it for 950 power cells. The next boss is going to be Aquatic Scourge, summoned in the Sulphurous Sea using the seafood item. Note that you'll need some queen jelly to make this, which drops from the queen jellyfish boss. After you've beaten it, you'll unlock the next tier of the Acid Rain event and encounter the Quagmire mini-boss. You should now get ready to fight your second mechanical boss. Defeating it will make the tier 3 ores appear in your world, being Adamantite and Titanium. Go mine some and use them to upgrade your Health Forge to a Titanium or Adamantite Forge, which will be used to smelt some of the later Hardmode ores. With the tier 3 pickaxe, you can now mine Cryonic ore in the underground ice biome. Cryonic bars will prove to be very useful at this point. You can make a new armor with the Daedalus armor. You can also really get to start the shield progression of the modpack with the Hornet shield. To make it, you'll first have to get the Shadowheart shield made from from frigid bars and a hot crystal. Once you have the Sharder Hot Shield, you'll be able to make the Hornet Shield with cryonic bar and crystal shards, which should replace your current dashing accessory. You can also make a more efficient pickaxe with the Shard-like pickaxe. Before fighting your last mechanical boss, you'll have to fight Brimstone Elemental in the Brimstone Crack biome using a Shard Idol. To craft this, you'll need Souls of Night, Essence of Havoc, Unholy Cores, and a Void Seer Pearl dropped by the Fallen Beholder. And now, you should be ready to fight your third mechanical boss. Even though you won't get hallowed bars from bosses until you beat Polaris, beating your third mechanical boss makes Alloyed Ore spawn in the Underground Hollow. A lot of items and upgrades you can do using Alloyed bars also require the 4 souls of the mechanical bosses, but for now, you can craft the Angel Treads, which is the next upgrade to your Terra Spark boots. As said in the beginning of Hardmode, you'll need to fight the final mechanical boss Polaris to progress to the next tier. To summon this boss, you'll have to craft a Frost Key made from a Dissolving Aurora dropped from the Permafrost Spirit enemy in the Ice biome, a Frost Core, and one of each mechanical boss soul. Then go to the Frost Rune and interact with the key on the Frost artifact to start the fight. After beating Polaris, you'll both unlock Alloyed bars and a ton of new upgrades needing the 4 souls of the mechanical bosses, so let's go through them quickly. Maybe the most important is the Pickaxe Axe, a new tier of pickaxe able to mine some of the future ores you'll encounter. Then you have the Avenger Emblem, crafted from any regular emblem, and the 4 mech souls, increasing damage by 12%. You can also upgrade your Titanium or Adamantite Forge to the Soul Forge, which is required to smelt and make your future equipment. You will also be able to craft a new upgrade to your storage system with the Alloyed upgrade. Of course, Alloyed bars allow you to make a lot of new gear, including weapons and armors for every class. You can also make new resources like the Absolute Alloy from Alloyed bars and Souls of Blight, or Titanic bars from Thorium. With your new Pickaxe Axe in hand, you should now head to the jungle and collect the newly available Chlorophyte ore. Having all of the souls of the mech bosses also allows you to make the Blood Orange from Life Fruits, Blood Orbs, and 5 of each mech boss souls for an extra 25 HP. Beating the mechanical bosses unlocked a new tier for the Old World's army, making the Augur available to fight. Another available event is the Solar Eclipse, having a 1 out of 20 chance to happen for any day after at least one mechanical boss has been beaten. It can also be summoned using a Solar Tablet, but you need to have access to the temple to obtain the Solar Tablet fragments needed, so it's a post-Plantera recipe. Fighting the Solar Eclipse will give you a bit of loot, but some of the more important enemies like the Mothron only appears after Plantera has been defeated, so we'll need to get back on that later. The next boss on your list is the Lich. To fight this boss, you'll first need to gather 30 pumpkins, with pumpkin seeds being available to buy from the Dryad. Then go to the graveyard found behind the dungeon. Even though you can upgrade your shield right now, as it requires a post-Plantera core of Calamity, the other required item is the Ankh Shield, and as you know, it requires quite a bit of grind to get, so it's best to get started now before you push towards beating Plantera. To craft the Ankh Shield, you will need to get armor polish from armored skeletons in the caverns with a 1% drop chance, vitamins from either Corruptors or Floaty Cross, both being evil enemies with a 1% drop chance, combine both accessories to make armor bracing. Then get Bezwar from Hornets or Toxic Sludge from the jungle with a 1% drop chance, then Adhesive Bandage from Werewolves with a 1% drop chance, combine both accessories to get Medicated Bandage. Then get Fast Clock from Pixies, Mummies or Wraiths, with each having a 1% drop chance, then Trifold Map from either Light or Spectral Mummies, Giant Bats or Clowns with a 1% drop chance, combine both accessories to get the plan. Then get Megaphone from either Pixies or Evil Mummies with a 1% drop chance, then Nazer from Cursed Skulls, Cursed Armors, Enchanted Swords or Crimson Axe with a 1% drop chance, combine both accessories to get Counter Curse Mantra. Then get Blindfold from Evil Slimes or Mummies with a 1% drop chance, then Pocket Mirror from Medusa with a 2.5% drop chance, combine both accessories to get Reflective Shades, even though I just recommend farming 2 Blindfolds and putting 1 in the Shimmer. Combine all of the accessories we made into the Ankh Charm, then into the Ankh Shield by combining your charm with an Obsidian Shield, and there you go, now you have a shield that negates both debuffs. You can equip it if you want, but it's useful to have it anyway since we will use it for the next shield upgrade. Now we can start our push towards Plantera. The last 2 bosses before it will be the Forgotten Shadow of Calamitas, or Calamitas clone if you're not playing on Infernum, and Clamitas Supreme Clam. First, to fight the Shadow of Calamitas, you'll need to craft the Eye of Desolation, crafted from Hailstone Bars, Essence of Havoc, Void Seal Pearl from the Fallen Beholder, and 10 Unholy Cores. Defeating the Shadow of Calamitas will give you access to Ashes of Calamity, a material that you can use to make some equipment and will be useful later to make the Core of Calamity material. Then, to fight Clamitas, you'll need to craft the Clamitus Shell from Ashes of Calamity and Mollusk Husk. And now you should be ready to fight Plantera. Go to the underground jungle and find the Vernal Pass, which should be a big open area with a tree in the middle. Clear the middle island and the bridges and build your arena there. Once you are ready, break one of the large bulbs. If you die enough times and run out of giant bulbs, you can summon Plantera manually using an aromatic bulb. Defeating Plantera unlocks a lot of new things used for progression. You'll now be able to collect 2 new ores, Perennial Ore and Illumite Chunks, both found in the Cavern layer, being both used to make new sets of armors and weapons. You also have access to the Living Shard material used in the Terra line of weapons. You should now make a visit to the dungeon to fight some of the new enemies there. Killing them will give you Ectoplasm, an important crafting material used to make the Core of Sunlight, Core of Havoc and Core of Eleum, which you can all combine to make the Core Core of Calamity. The Core of Calamity can then be used to make Asgard's Valor, a new upgrade to your shield using the Eng shield we made earlier and the Hornet shield. You can also use Ectoplasm and combine it with thorium bars to make concentrated thorium, which can then be used to make a new crafting material, either Demon Blood Shard for Crimson Worlds and Dread Soul for Corruption Worlds. You can also obtain other materials like the Dark Matter from dungeon enemies or Holy Knight's Alloy from Paladins. Killing Plantera has also unlocked the Biome chest in the dungeon and the Sky artifacts from the Secret of the Shadows mod. There's a pretty high chance that you already have at least one of the keys needed to open the chests, as certain mods make them much easier to get than the painful vanilla 1 out of 2500 drop chance, often dropping instead from certain bosses or obtainable in special chests. Also note that there is 3 new biome chests added, one for the underworld, one for the aquatic depths, and one for the astral biome. However, the astral biome chest will remain locked until the defeat of Astrum Aarhus, a boss later in progression. Each of these chests all give new weapons for the Calamity and Thorium classes respectively. Currently, the Sky artifacts only have chests for the original biome chests and not Thorium or Calamity biome chests yet. Having Ectoplasm also allows you to make Spectre bars by combining Chlorophyte and Ectoplasm. Beating Plantera also means that the auto armor will now be available to buy from the Truffle NPC. To get the Truffle NPC, you'll need to manually create a surface mushroom biome. Getting the auto armor allows you to make Shumite bars from Chlorophyte and glowing mushrooms. And finally, by defeating Plantera, you now gain access to the jungle temple by using your temple key at the entrance. Even though we are not beating Golem right away, you can still go and explore as there is a lot of very good loot to get, especially in terms of weapons. The next boss is going to be Anaita and the Leviathan, summoned after killing a question mark enemy in the ocean. One good loot that this boss drops is the community, which increases several stats depending on your progress in terms of boss progression. It's a very good accessory that you can very well choose to keep until the end of your run. The next boss is Astrum Aarhus, one of the 3 Astral Infection boss, summoned using an Astral Chunk crafted from Starblight Suit from Astral enemies and Fallen Stars. Beating this boss will give you some loot, but also the Starlight Fuel Cell, which is the second permanent adrenaline buff. And now, the last boss before beating the Golem is Okram, summoned at night using a suspicious looking skull, crafted from bones, ectoplasm, and 1 soul of each mech boss. Okram drops some pretty good weapons that will be useful when fighting Golem, and a new soul called Soul of Blight. Speaking of which, now would be a pretty good time to fight the Golem. Before fighting it, make sure that you have some lizard power cells dropped from enemies in the temple or looted from temple chests. Make sure to disarm all of the traps present in the arena space, and when you're ready, use the power cell on the altar to start the fight. Beating the Golem unlocks yet another progression tier, with one of the most important item drop being the Pixel, a new tier of pickaxe with 210% pickaxe power. Having this new pickaxe will allow you to begin mining scoria ores in the 3rd layer of the Abyss. To explore the Abyss more comfortably, it's recommended to make the Abyssal diving gear. It's quite a grind to get since you need the Arctic diving gear to make it, but it's almost required to get in order to explore this deep into the Abyss. A helpful tip when grinding for the Abyssal diving gear is that you can get a free set set of Arctic diving gear in the snow biome Drayden lab. You can use Scoria bars for quite a few new crafts. You obviously have the armors and the weapons for every class as for every major calamity ores, but you can also now make life alloys, a very important crafting material for later, crafted from cryonic, perennial, scoria, and titanic bars. Life alloys are also used to make the next upgrade to the Codebreaker, the advanced display. The next schematic to decrypt is the one from the Otherworld lab, requiring 1750 power cells to complete. Decrypting the schematic will unlock the craft to new Drayden weapons and to the next upgrade of the Codebreaker, which won't be craftable until the boss moonlit stage. The Golem drops some Beetle Husk, which you can combine with Shromite and Spectre bars and emeralds to get a new upgrade to your magic storage system, the Blue Chlorophyte upgrade. Beating the Golem also unlocks some new plague-related enemies in the underground jungle, like the Plague Bringer, which will drop Plague Cells canisters. We will hear more of the Plague Bringer very soon, so keep that in mind. Your next boss is going to be the Forgotten One, fought in the Aquatic Depths. To summon it, pick up 3 Abyssal Shadows, dropped from Aquatic Hallucinations. Make sure to clear out some space to be able to move freely during the fight. Next up will be the 2 seasonal events, being the Pumpkin Moon and the Frost Moon. For the Pumpkin Moon, craft the Pumpkin Moon medallion from pumpkins, ectoplasms, and life alloys and use it at night. As you probably know, the seasonal events work in waves, with more difficult enemies and mini-bosses like the Morning Wood or Pumpkin spawning in later waves. After beating those 2 mini-bosses and reaching at least wave 15 on the Pumpkin Moon, the next event will be the Frost Moon, summoned using a Naughty Present with the same craft as the Pumpkin Moon medallion, except with silk instead of pumpkins. This event has its own sets of mini-bosses, being the Ever Scream, Senta NK1, and the Ice Queen. For another invasion event, the final one for this tier, we have the Martian Madness, summoned using the Martian Distress remote, bought from the Cyborg for 50 gold. The Martian Madness is especially good since a lot of enemies, and especially the Martian Saucer mini-boss, will give a ton of different weapons for each class. Finally getting back to boss battles, the next boss is none other than Duke Fishwan. To summon him, you'll have to get a truffle worm caught in the underground mushroom biome, then use it as bait in the ocean to start the fight. Apart from all of the cool weapons it drops, you also have a chance to get the Fishwan wings with some great stats to replace your current pair of wings. Next boss to fight is going to be the Plaguebringer Goliath, summoned in the underground jungle using the Abomination, crafted from fuel cell canisters, Martian conduit plating, dubious plating, mysterious secretary, and an old power cell using the Codebreaker as the crafting station. The Plaguebringer Goliath gives some pretty good plague-related equipment that can definitely be used against some of the last challenges you'll face before the Lunatic Cultist. So let's go through them. First, beating the Golem has unlocked the final tier of the Old One army containing the mini-boss Betsy, spawning on wave 7 of the event. You then have the bosses from the Alloyed biome, with the first one being the Empress of Light, summoned by killing a prismatic lacewing at night, giving some pretty good loot, especially for summoners. Then you have Lux, being a sort of Empress of Light 2.0. It is fought in the Allo by killing a Chaos Construct. To summon constructs at will, you'll need to craft a couple of electromagnetic lures. When used, they will spawn a construct depending on the biome you're in. So depending on the original biome where the Allo is, you might have to summon a few constructs before summoning a Chaos one. Defeating Lux will give you phase ore as loot. This ore can be transformed into bars using a few different crafting recipes, which can be used to make some new weapons. Phase ore will also appear in your worlds toward the sky layer. It can be pretty annoying to deal with, since it will be invisible until you get close to it. Try to mine the clusters of ores that are directly above your base or arena, or you might get some bad surprise when you try to fight bosses in the air. And your final boss before taking on the lunatic cultist will be Ravager. It can be summoned using a death whistle, crafted from solar tablet fragments, lizard's bricks, life alloys, and souls of blight. Defeating the Ravager will give you Infernal Blood, being a new permanent rage upgrade, increasing the duration of the rage effect by a second. With the defeat of the Ravager, your next challenge will now be to defeat the Lunatic Cultist and to begin your push toward the post-moonlit stage. When you're ready, go to the dungeon and kill the Cultist at the entrance to start the fight. Defeating the Lunatic Cultist brings you into the final tier of Hardmode. As you defeat him, the Lunar Invasion will start, and the 4 Lunar Pillars will spawn in your world. Defeating the 4 of them will make the Moonlord spawn. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, as there is still a few more final challenges before we can take on the Moonlord. The Lunatic Cultist dropped the Ancient Manipulator, a crafting station that will be used for a majority of the crafts coming up for this tier, and beyond in the post-Moonlord stage. Having the Ancient Manipulator allows you to begin making Terrarium cores, being considered as one of the final materials being used for a lot of late game crafts. These cores can be crafted by combining one of all major vanilla bars and one ectoplasm. You can already use them to make new weapons and a new armor, and also to upgrade your angel threads to Terrarium particle spiriters. Before taking on these final challenges, it might be worth it to get some new gear from the pillars. You can go and take down the pillar related to your class, with Solar being for melee, Vortex for ranger, Nebula for mage, and Stardust for summoner. If you're playing any other class, you can defeat any pillar you want, as the 3 modded fragments can drop from any pillar, with Shooting Stars for Bard, Celestial for healer, and White Dwarf for thrower. If a pillar is inside of the Astral Infection biome, try to get rid of that one, since we will need this biome for future boss battles. While killing enemies from the pillars, you'll get mailed blobs, which can then be crafted into mailed constructs to make some new weapons and eventually armor once you get Luminite. Your next boss is going to be Astrum Deus, your second Astral Infection boss. To summon it, you need to get a Titan Heart, drop from the Atlas enemies in the Astral biome, and offer it at the Astral Beacon. Defeating the boss will make the astral ore you can find in the underground astral biome mineable. Astral ore can be crafted into astral bars from new gear. If you've defeated the Nebula pillar, you can also make the ethereal core, another permanent mana upgrade adding 50 mana. The next boss is going to be Bereft Vassal. To fight this boss, you'll have to travel to a new dimension by opening up a portal. First, make the Sandstorm's core from Forbidden Fragments, Core of Sunlight, and a Solar Fragment. Then, go to the underground desert, find the portal room, and activate the portal using the core. You'll be teleported into the Lost Colosseum, where you'll start the fight against the boss. Defeating the Buried Vessel grants some new Infernum items, as well as access to Sand Shark Scales. Then, the next boss is going to be Subspace Serpent, being the last boss from Secret of the Shadows. It can be summoned using a Catalyst Bomb, from some Torch Bombs, a Dynamite, Ectoplasm, and Soul of Night. You can summon the boss in the Sanctuary. This boss is a tough one, so don't worry if you can't defeat it with pre-Moonload gear. You'll be able to fight Moonload later without gear from this boss. With that being said, defeating it will give you Sangite Scales, a material that you can use to make some new gear, but also to upgrade your boots to the Subspace Boosters. To make this, you'll need your current pair of boots, but also another pair from another crafting tree, the Flash Spark Boots, which can be crafted from Absolute Alloy, Hellfire Threads, and Ashes of Calamity. Then combine the two pairs with the Tabai and the Sangite Scales, and you'll get your new pair. This specific pair will allow you to make a massive dash when you're on the ground, which sometimes can be a bit uncontrollable. However, in a future update, the Infernal Eclipse team plans to make it use its own keybind. And now for your last challenge before defeating the Moonload, you have Astrakeldon, the third and final Astral Infection boss, as well as your first super boss, intended to be the very last boss of the hard mode. To summon it, you'll need to use the Astral Communicator, dropped by Astrum Deus in the Astral Infection biome. There's a very high chance that you'll feel like this boss is very hard, and it's by design. The boss is a sort of final test of your skills and equipment before going towards the boss Moonload stage. Be aware that in Infernal mod, you can no longer skip phase 1 of Astrakeldon, so stay focused on the entire fight. The rewards you get from this boss will be used later on in the progression, so even if it can be tempting to skip the boss and go for the Moonload, keep pushing and you will eventually succeed. However, if you end up skipping Astrakeldon, Infernal Eclipse allows you to fight him after Moonload. However, this boss will be buffed to a Providence level boss. After defeating it, a new ore will appear deep in the underground astral biome, being Metanova ore. Using this ore and combining it with astral jelly, astral bars, Myriad bars, and Starblight suit, you'll be able to craft Metanova bars, being the best hard mode material, used to make your final pieces of gear before the big fight. This gear is usable until Providence, so enjoy the power boost. Alright, enough fooling around, and let's get to what we've all been waiting for, the Moonload. Go defeat the few remaining pillars in your world and prepare for the impending doom. After all of the pillars are defeated, you'll only have a few seconds until the Moonload spawns. However, if you don't beat him on the first try, you can take any leftover celestial fragments you have and craft the celestial tablet, which allows you to infinitely respawn him without having to refight the cultists and pillars. When he spawns, give everything you have and you'll eventually take him down. leaving you in post-moon mode, which also signs the end of this video. In the next video, we'll discover the end of the modpack progression. If this video was useful to you and you plan on playing on multiplayer, please consider using my code BROME when renting a server on Bisect Hosting by clicking on the link in the description, as you will get 25% off your first month, and Bisect Hosting is the only service that officially supports Terraria modpacks. If you want to support the channel personally, you can also join the channel and become a member, which allows me to continue making these types of videos. Thanks to everyone for watching, and see you in a few days for the final part of this guide.